Welcome to Choose Your Location. After auctioning for in excess of 10 years, I've finally figured out exactly where I want to conduct the auction. I've figured out which location and where do I want the audience to stand is going to give us the best theatrical performance, to make the bidders feel most comfortable to interact, and to give me as the performer the best sensation and enhance my energy levels so that ultimately the vendors can get the best result, the audience can feel entertained, the bidders feel comfortable to participate, and we win more auction bookings as a result. What I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to dissect the 4 key different kinds of abodes, the different properties where you'll be auctioning, and we're going to dissect and take a look at and peer into the ideal location for the audience to stand. But before we do that, let's take, for example, an amphitheatre. Tiered seating, the performers are on ground level, the audience is above them, the seating is spread around the performers, an even distribution of attendees. There's seats with seat numbers specifically in locations to give it the best theatrical experience for the audience and the best performing conditions for the performers. If for some reason the amphitheatre is only half full, do you think that the audience would receive ticket numbers to throw them all on one side of the theatre? Do you think that the audience members would be handed tickets to sit right at the back of the amphitheatre? Or do you think that the audience would be handed tickets to all spread around evenly and close together on the bottom tier? That feels good. Or do you think they'd be handed tickets to be evenly distributed on tier 1, tier 2 and tier 3? That feels alright as well. But lopsided doesn't feel too good. With an auction, we don't have an amphitheatre, but you need to create your own, and you're in control of that. You need to identify where that's going to take place, and you're the one that needs to control where the audience stands, because there's no seats, there's no seat numbers, and there are no tickets. Number 1, pick the location. Number 2, get the audience into the location. And once that's done, now's your time to build rapport, warm up the crowd as if you're a busker in the mall with that rope around them, warming up your audience before the show starts. But you need to get them into location before you go ahead and do that. Now let's dissect 4 different types of abodes. Let's take, for example, the freestanding house. Number 2, the terrace or the townhouse, butting right up to the street. Number 3, a unit or a block. Number 4, a high-rise apartment building. Let's put the microscope on the most common, the freestanding house. Where do you want to conduct the auction in the freestanding house? There's a few options. In no particular order of relevance, I ask you to explore the following. Number 1, in the driveway and on the footpath and on the parking strip, but on the same side of the road as the property that you're selling. So you stand on the driveway, the neighbours and the bidders come onto the driveway, onto the footpath, onto the parking strip on this side of the road. You can even walk towards them to feel closer to them. What you want is the audience as close to as possible, spread evenly around you. 180 degrees, 270 degrees. So walk into them rather than walking back into the driveway. If they're not on the driveway, you'll only be using a 90-degree circumference. 140 degrees, better. 180 degrees, even better. 270 degrees, that's a potential as well. Option number 2, on the front lawn. If for some reason the porch that's undercover is available, I recommend you try to avoid it, because often the porch is risen at a higher level. Often the porch has got poles holding it up. Often the porch is somehow creating a barrier, whether it's by a physical object or the fact that you're higher than your audience. Often the porch is creating a barrier. Ideally, you're just in front of the porch, right in the middle of the front yard, maybe even a meter in front of the porch, and the audience is evenly distributed around you, in front of you, diagonally, to the left, to the right, and maybe even, say for example, there's a couple of elderly couples or families with babies, and say for example it's more important for them to be standing in the shade, and say for example there's a seat or two on the porch. Welcome them to be sitting and standing on the porch. You can even have people behind you. The stage is set, you're on their level, they're evenly distributed. The amphitheatre, the seats, the seat numbers, it's your job to control that. What about the backyard? If the backyard presents itself for an even distribution of attendees, just like the front yard, or say for example the front yard has got some blockages, take it to the backyard. Often, whether it's the backyard or the front yard, doesn't make much of a difference. Explore these different options and see how it feels for you. What do we want to avoid, if possible? What we want to avoid is this. I see it happen all the time. The auctioneer stands on the footpath, the neighbours and the bidders are spread on the other side of the street, and up the street, behind a tree, behind a car, left and right on your side of the street, 50 metres that way, 50 metres that way. Distributed, far away from you, all around you. There's passing traffic, there's noise, there's interruptions, and you're there as the auctioneer yelling and screaming with one tone, loud voice, and what happens? You lose energy quickly. Your body language suffers. Your facial expressions suffer. You sound angry because you're yelling. You huff and you puff and you tire, and you can't connect with your audience as a human. You're an auctioneer/yeller. On the flip side of that, your voice doesn't project loud enough and people can't hear you. Now, if you are left with no option but to do that, say for example, there's cars parked right down the strip of your side of the street and you're unable to bring the crowd into the driveway. Or say for example, there is no driveway. Or say, for example, the front yard is just peppered with trees and vegetation and you're unable to bring the audience to the front yard. And there's no room in the backyard. So you can't do it on the footpath on this side of the road. They need to be evenly distributed around the street on both sides. What do you do then? To combat these challenges, I always carry a speaker system. A wireless MyPro speaker system. A tripod, a speaker system, and a microphone. It goes over my ears. They call it a Madonna mic. It comes around here, and I've got a belt pack so I can move around freely, and I can move the speaker system wherever I want because it is wireless. And all of a sudden, that helps me project my tone. I can literally be whispering or speaking at a low level like this, and someone 100 metres that way and 100 metres that way can hear me. I don't huff, I don't puff, I don't tire. Everybody can hear me, and my performance isn't jeopardised as a result. Physically though, because of the long distance between me and the audience, we aren't as connected as I would like. But if there's no other option, the speaker system I highly recommend. Let's work our way to the terrace or the townhouse, often butting right up to the footpath. Often, if not butting right up to the footpath, close to the footpath. Often the terrace or the townhouse does not have enough space between the front of the property and the front fence to bring the crowd into the front yard. Now, if for some reason the terrace or the townhouse have a driveway and a footpath that's big enough to bring the audience into that location, that's usually what I would recommend. Onto the footpath, and if possible, if there's a parking lane on the street that's available, onto that lane, onto the footpath, in front of you, to the side of you, a little bit onto the driveway. Bring the crowd as close to you as possible. Now, if that is not an option, Is there a backyard sufficient and big enough for you to evenly distribute all the attendees evenly around you? Now, if the answer is no to both of those options, it's time for you to take this auction right onto the street. If there's no room for everybody to stand on this side of the street, you may need everyone distributed on the other side of the street, on your side of the street. If that's the case, where do you stand? Do you stand as close to the fence as possible, with people gathered on the footpath in front of you, and to the side of you, and on the other side of the road? What would need to happen in that situation is you need to yell over the people on your side of the footpath so your voice can reach the people on the other side of the road. That is intimidating. That is intrusive. In this situation, I'd recommend that you stand right up against where the footpath meets the parking strip in the street, or stand on the parking strip on the street. So, like, for example, 30 centimeters behind your heels is the curb. Because all of a sudden, you don't need to shout over anyone to get to anyone. The audience is evenly distributed. There's people standing in front of you, diagonally to your left, your right, to your left, to your right, diagonally behind you to your left, diagonally behind you to your right. 270 degrees circumference. We're doing our best to replicate an amphitheatre. Let's take a look at the unit in a block. A unit in a block of units. If it's a big singular block of units and there's nowhere for you to stand, as per usual, take it to the footpath. Try to keep everybody on this side of the road, on the footpath, on a driveway if there is one, on the parking lane on this side of the road. Do your best to hold everyone close together, evenly spread around you, just like the terrace or townhouse, just like the freestanding house. Now, if there's a garden or a front yard or a backyard or a big parking lot, if there's some kind of an area where you can bring the crowd into a specific location inside the block, be open to bringing them there. I remember I conducted an auction in St Kilda in the southern suburbs of Melbourne a couple of years ago, and there was a big set of units. 16 units, 2 separate blocks, side by side, and I was auctioning one of those units. I brought the audience onto the entrance of those 2 units, the driveway that went from the street right between those 2 units leading to the car park out the back. I stood right where that driveway went from the street right between the units, and I got the crowd, the neighbours, the bidders to stand evenly spread around me. What if I didn't have that option? What if there was cars parked around, trees, vegetation, lots of passing traffic, residents driving in and out of that driveway? Where else could I stand? I could have taken it to the back of the block of units because there was 2 different large parking lots, and I could have stood inside one of those parking lots and once again got the crowd to evenly distribute around me. What if, for example, it's a corner block of units? What if, for example, there's nowhere to stand on the block? What if, for example, the footpath is a little bit wider than usual? If we've got a little bit of space to play with, you could stand right on the corner with the audience in a U shape evenly spread around you, in front of you, diagonally to your left, right, behind you, on the left and the right, and you stand on the corner of the units. Or you could work your way to the center of the units on one of the sides of the street, standing in front of the signboard so the company branding can be behind you. If, for example, there's enough space, you can get the audience in front of you, to the side of you, on the parking strip in front of you. What if there's still no space? What if it's really windy? What if it's raining? That often tends to bring out less people. Ask yourself the question, is there enough room in the actual unit to conduct the auction there? If there's 20 or 25 people, the answer might be yes. What's the cutoff point? Is it 10 people, 15 people, 20 people? Have a think about this before the day and plan for the weather. Too windy, really rainy, or exceptionally piping hot at 40 degrees Celsius. Could you get the crowd inside the unit? Or is there an undercover parking lot where you could get the crowd to stand? Let's take a look at high-rise apartments. Often, a high-rise apartment butts right up to the street. Where could you stand in a high-rise apartment? Well, if there's space and if there's a good feeling inside that apartment, there could be a big balcony, an open plan living area, you can bring the crowd into the apartment. Often, high-rise buildings have a large entry foyer. You could stand in the large entry foyer. Important for you to locate yourself so the audience can be as evenly distributed around you as possible. Keep this in mind. You want everybody to have the best possible seat in the house. Where can you stand so everybody's got the best possible view of you, the performer? It could be in the parking lot. If it's on a quiet street with a large footpath, you could take the auction outside. So there you go. I've just unwrapped and dissected some suggestions on where you could and probably should facilitate the auction for a freestanding house, a terrace or a townhouse, a unit in a block, and a high-rise apartment. Remember, an amphitheatre, seats with seat numbers, and the attendees are evenly distributed. Imagine it was only 30% capacity. Would all the audience members be sent right to the back of the theatre? I don't think so. Would all the audience members be sent to the right-hand side of the theatre? I don't think so. Would all the audience members be evenly distributed right in front of the stage? Or would they be evenly spread out, left and right, across Tier 1 and Tier 2? Potentially. Always ask yourself the question, what is going to give the audience the best possible experience? What's going to give the bidders the most comfortable and relaxed environment for them to participate and to bid? What's going to make it as easy as possible for each bidder to see the other bidder, their competitor, the person they're competing against? Which location should everybody be standing in so me as the performer can see everybody clearly, evenly spread around me, so that my energy is evenly spread, so that my energy is at sky-high levels? There we go. We want everybody to have the best possible seat in the house. Because there's no ticket and seat numbers, it's your job as the auctioneer to pick the location and to get the audience there.